rain glossed the streetlights outside St. Halston Medical Center, turning the pavement into a mirror. Maurice Caldwell held his wife's hand, like it was the only rope keeping him from slipping under. Gloria's fingers were cold. Her eyes were open, but not quite on him, and when he stepped through those sliding doors, clutching a folder of paperwork and a plastic bag of her medicines, the hospital did not see a husband. They saw a problem. They saw a black man in a worn jacket, holding a woman who looked confused. They saw someone they could rush, dismiss, and quietly push to the side. What they did not know was this. Maurice had spent 32 years driving a city bus through every corner of Baltimore. He knew every shortcut, every back road, every pattern, and he knew what it looked like when people ran the same scam over and over. They just never expected him to recognize it inside a hospital, and that was their first mistake. Quick, one. Before we dive in, tell me where you're watching from, city and state. And if you believe in dignity, fairness, and real accountability, hit like and subscribe. All right, back to Maurice. Maurice had not slept properly in weeks. Gloria's memory was slipping faster now. Some days she called him daddy, like he was her father. Some days she stared straight through him, like he was furniture. But today was different. Today she had collapsed on the kitchen tiles, shaking, lips pale, eyes rolling like she was trying to escape her own body. Maurice had called 911. With a calm voice he did not feel. Now Gloria lay on a gurney behind a curtain, while a young resident asked questions to fast and listened to little. Does she take her medication regularly? Maurice blinked. Every day. I said it out. I watch her take it. The resident's eyes dipped to Maurice's shoes. Are you sure? Maurice felt the sting of that question. Not the words, the assumption. He reached into his folder and slid forward a neat list. Dates and times, handwritten, I'm sure. The resident nodded, like she had to pretend she believed him. Then came the nurse, white. Late 40s, tight smile that did not reach her eyes. Her badge read, Karen Blythe, patient access, not a nurse, not clinical, paperwork, money. Karen. Looked at Gloria, then at Maurice. Insurance. Maurice swallowed. I'm retired. City Transit. We've got Medicare. Supplement 2. Karen held out her hand like she was collecting rent. Maurice passed the cards. Karen studied them for 1 second, then sighed like she was tired of Maurice personally. All right, we'll see what we can do. Maurice frowned. What does that mean? She needs help. Karen's smile tightened. Sir, everyone needs help. Then she said the line that made Maurice's chest go cold. And just so you know, charity care is not guaranteed. Charity care, like his wife, was begging. Like his wife's life was a favor. Maurice's jaw clenched. We're not asking for charity. We have coverage. Karen tilted her head. We'll verify. Please, take a seat. She pointed to a row of chairs under a bright light. Right beside security. Maurice did not miss that part. He guided Gloria to a chair. Gloria mumbled something confused. Trying to stand, Maurice gently pulled her back down. It's all right, baby. I've got you. That's when the security guard stepped closer. Big, white, muscular hands clasped in front, like he was guarding a nightclub, not an emergency department. His badge, said Danner. He looked at Maurice like Maurice was already guilty. Sir, you need to keep her calm. Maurice stared. I'm trying. She's sick. Danner's gaze flicked to Maurice's folder. Just follow instructions. Maurice felt heat rise behind his eyes. He had followed instructions his whole life. He had served the city in every weather, every shift, every holiday. He had carried people to funerals and birth rooms and court dates. And now, with his wife shaking beside him, a man who had never done a day of that was talking down to him like a child. Maurice breathed in slowly. Are you going to help us, or just stand there? Danner's expression hardened. Watch your tone. There it was. The warning that meant, be quiet. Blackman.org. We make this worse. Maurice looked away. Not because he was scared, because he was calculating. He had learned long ago, on late-night routes, through rough neighborhoods, that a person looking for conflict will take anything you give them, so you give them nothing. And you collect everything. Minutes later, they rolled Gloria through double doors. Maurice stood to follow. Karen stepped in front of him. "Where do you think you're going?" "If my wife." Karen shook her head. "Only one visitor back there at a time. Take a seat." Maurice stared at her. "She doesn't understand what's happening. She needs me." Karen shrugged, like it was a weather report. "Sir, sit down." Maurice heard Gloria's voice fading. Maurice. Then the doors closed. Maurice sat back down, hands shaking. And in that moment, under the buzzing lights, he thought something he hated himself for thinking. If I was white, would they be doing this? He already knew the answer. An hour passed, to no updates. Every time Maurice stood, Danner's eyes snapped to him. Every time he asked, Karen gave him the same icy smile. "We'll let you know when the doctor's available." When the doctor's available, as if Gloria's life was waiting in line behind someone's lunch break. Finally, a doctor appeared. White hair, crisp coat, confident stride. Dr. Whitman. Cardiology. He did not greet Maurice. He glanced at a chart and spoke like Maurice was not fully human. "Your wife is dehydrated. Elevated blood pressure. Possibly." Maurice stepped forward. Non-compliant with what? Whitman's eyes met his for half a second, then slid away. "Her regimen, diet, medication." Maurice's voice rose. "She takes what she's prescribed. I track it. I wrote it down." Whitman lifted a hand like he was silencing a noisy dog. "Sir, these cases are complicated. Dementia patients often refuse medication." Maurice clenched his fists. "My wife is not a case. She's Gloria. She raised our daughter. She sang in the church choir. She used to make sweet potato pie from scratch. She is not a file on your clipboard." Whitman's face stayed flat. "We're running tests." Maurice nodded, trying to hold himself together. "When can I see her?" Whitman glanced at Karen, who had somehow appeared again. Karen said, "We'll arrange it when she's stable." Maurice stared. "I'm her husband." Karen's tone sharpened. "And we have protocols. Please cooperate." Cooperate. Another word that meant, shut up. That night, Maurice finally got to see Gloria, for 6 minutes. She lay in a room with pale walls, a tube in her arm, eyes half-lidded when she saw him. She tried to smile. "Maurice, I'm here, baby." Her hand reached for him, trembling. Then a nurse stepped in. "Time's up." Maurice kissed Gloria's forehead. "I'll be right outside." Gloria's eyes widened like a child being abandoned. "No, don't go." Maurice's throat tightened. "I have to, but I'll be right back." He stepped out. The door clicked shut, and he heard Gloria cry out softly behind it. That sound followed him down the corridor, like a shadow at the nurse's station. He saw Karen again, tapping at a computer. He approached calmly. "Ms. Blythe, I need to understand what's happening with her insurance verification." Karen's fingers paused. She did not look up. "It's in process." Maurice nodded. "Can I have something in writing? A record of what you've submitted?" Karen finally looked at him, eyes cold. "No." Maurice blinked. "Why not?" Karen leaned in slightly, like she was sharing a secret. "Because you don't need it." Maurice's voice was steady. "I do need it." Karen's smile appeared again, thin and sharp. "Sir, are you trying to cause a problem?" Maurice held her gaze. "No." He paused. "I'm trying to stop one." Karen's expression flickered. Just a flicker, then she snapped. "Security." Danner appeared like he was waiting for his cue. "Sir, you need to step away from the desk." Maurice looked at Danner, then back to Karen. He lowered his voice. "I'm not leaving. I'm asking questions about my wife's care." Danner stepped closer, invading Maurice's space. "You're upsetting staff." Maurice laughed once. "Bitter staff." He pointed down the corridor. "My wife is terrified in there. And you're worried about staff feelings." Danner's jaw flexed. Last warning. Maurice felt the humiliation like a slap. Not loud, not dramatic, a controlled, quiet humiliation. A grown man, treated like a threat for wanting clarity. He looked around. Other patients watched. Some looked away. Some looked uncomfortable. No one stepped in. Maurice slowly raised his hands. All right. He stepped back, but he did not leave. He sat down, where he could see the desk, the corridor, and the door to Gloria's room, and he watched. Because something about Karen's behavior was wrong. It wasn't just rude, it was practiced, like she had done this 100 times. Later that night, when the corridor quieted, Maurice saw Karen print something, slide it into a folder, and place it in a tray labeled financial clearance. She glanced around before she did it. That glance told Maurice everything. People who have nothing to hide do not look over their shoulder. Maurice waited at 2:13 a.m. Karen walked away to get coffee. Maurice stood, slow and calm, and walked to the desk. A young nurse sat there, half asleep, scrolling her phone. Maurice smiled politely. "Excuse me, I think my wife's chart got mixed. Can you check her room number for me?" The nurse yawned, barely paying attention, and turned the computer screen slightly. Maurice saw Gloria's name. Then he saw a red label beside it. Self, PE. Nitrogen monoxide. Maurice's heart hammered. That was a lie he had given them. Everything. Medicare, supplement, retirement, info. All of it. He leaned closer, under notes. He saw something worse. Charity care offered. Patient refused. Patient refused. Maurice stared at the screen, cold spreading through his body. Gloria had not refused anything. Gloria barely knew what day it was. Maurice looked at the sleepy nurse, who entered that. The nurse blinked. "Ah, patient access." Maurice nodded slowly. "Thank you." He stepped back, sat down again, and stared at the floor. Twist number 1 was not a twist yet, not fully, but Maurice felt it, forming, like thunder building far off. Someone was changing, someone was setting people up to be billed. And the moment those bills hit, they would come like wolves. Maurice's phone buzzed. A text from his daughter Renee. "How's Mum? Any updates?" Maurice swallowed hard before typing. "They're playing games. I'm staying on it." Renee replied fast. "Dad, be careful. Hospitals do what they want." Maurice stared at that message. Hospitals do what they want. That was the struggle his generation knew too well. You work hard, pay in, do the right thing, and still, the system finds a way to squeeze you when you're most vulnerable. The next morning, Dr. Whitman returned. He spoke with the same detached authority. "We'll discharge her this evening. Follow up with neurology. She's stable." Maurice blinked. "Stable. She's worse. She barely recognized me last night." Whitman's eyes narrowed slightly. "Dementia progresses." Maurice shook his head. "This is sudden." She collapsed. She shook like she was having a seizure. Whitman's tone sharpened. "Sir, please understand your limitations. I have decades of experience." Maurice stared at him. "And I have decades of living with." For Whitman's side, like Maurice was, exhausting. "We've done what's needed." Maurice felt a snap inside him. Not anger, resolve. He asked one question, softly. "What tests did you run?" Whitman hesitated. A fraction dot, then he listed a few vague things. Maurice nodded, and an MRI. Whitman's face tightened. "No." Maurice held his gaze. "Why not?" Whitman's voice cooled, not indicated. Maurice stepped closer. "My wife collapsed. She's declining rapidly. You're discharging her without scanning her brain." Whitman's eyes flicked to Karen, who hovered nearby like a shadow. Karen said quickly, "Sir, you can request additional tests through your primary provider." Maurice laughed again, low. "So you can charge me for everything, but you can't scan her." Karen's smile vanished. "Watch your language." Maurice looked around. Patients in wheelchairs. Elderly folks with blankets. A black grandmother clutching a brown paper bag of meds. A Latino man holding his son. who was coughing. People looked tired, worn down, used to being told no. Maurice raised his voice, just enough to carry. "Who do I speak to about billing fraud?" The corridor went quiet. Karen's face froze. Whitman stared, like Maurice had sworn in church. Danner appeared again, quicker than before. "Sir, you need to leave the area." Maurice turned to Danner. "I'm not leaving. I'm asking who is changing insurance records." Karen snapped. "He's threatening staff." Maurice's mouth fell open, threatening. "I'm talking." Danner grabbed Maurice's arm. Maurice did not swing, did not shout. He simply looked at Danner's hand on him and said quietly, "Get your hand off me." Danner tightened his grip. "Come on." And there, in full view of everyone, Maurice, a 61-year-old retired bus driver, was being marched through a hospital like a criminal. That was humiliation, scene number 1. Clear, public, deliberate. They pushed him outside the main doors into the cold daylight. Maurice stumbled, caught himself, and turned back, eyes blazing. "My wife is inside." Karen stood in the doorway, arms crossed. "You can return when you calm down." Maurice stared at her. Then he did something that shocked even him. He sat down on the concrete bench, right outside the entrance, and he stayed. Because he was not leaving, not without Gloria. Hours passed, people came and went. Some looked at him with pity, some with annoyance. A few older black folks nodded at him, like they understood, without a word. Maurice's stomach growled, but he ignored it. He called Renee. Renee answered in a whisper. "Dad, they escorted me out." "Why?" Maurice spoke low. "Because I asked who's changing Mum's insurance status." Renee went silent. Then she said something that made Maurice's blood run cold. "Dad, that happened to one of my patients last year, at a different hospital. They marked them self-pay, then sent them to collections, even though they had coverage." Maurice closed his eyes, so it was real, not paranoia. "A pattern," Renee continued, voice tight. "They target older people, especially folks without lawyers, especially black families who won't be believed." Maurice stared through the glass doors at the lobby. "They picked the wrong family," Renee inhaled. "I'm coming after my shift." Maurice shook his head. "No, don't, not yet. I need you calm. I need you smart." Renee swallowed. "Dad, I'm already not calm." Maurice softened. "I know, baby. Just listen. Bring your badge and your phone, and come ready." He hung up and looked up at the hospital sign. St. Halston, holy, a name meant to inspire trust. Maurice thought about his mother, God rest her soul. She used to say, "Son, don't let the building fool you. Wickedness can wear a white coat too." He had not understood as a boy. He did now. That afternoon, a young doctor stepped outside. Brown skin, dark hair pulled back. Her badge read, Dr. Amina Patel, resident. She looked nervous, scanning the area, then walked straight to Maurice. "Mr. Caldwell." Maurice stood wary. "Yes," Amina lowered her voice. "I saw what happened earlier." Maurice watched her carefully. "Then you saw them lie." Amina swallowed. "I did." Maurice's eyebrows rose, glanced back at the doors. "There, discharging your wife, without an MRI, because it costs money and it complicates billing." Marie's heart thudded. "You're sure?" Amina nodded. "I reviewed her chart. There are signs of transient attacks, mini strokes. Her symptoms could be vascular." Maurice felt dizzy. "You're telling me this might not be dementia, getting worse?" Amina's eyes shone with frustration. "I'm telling you, it might be treatable, if someone takes it seriously." Maurice's throat tightened, twist. Number 2 landed like a punch. All this time, he had been mourning Gloria while she was still alive. All this time, they had been writing her off, Maurice whispered. Why would they do that? Amina looked away. Because older black patients get labeled. Poor historian. Behavioral. It's easier than listening. Maurice clenched his jaw. "Can you order the MRI?" Amina's face tightened. I can request it. But Dr. Whitman has to approve, and he won't. Maurice stared at her. Amina continued, voice trembling with anger and fear. There's also something else. Maurice leaned in. I saw the insurance notes. They're wrong. Maurice nodded slowly. I saw that too. Amina swallowed. I shouldn't be telling you this, but patient access has been flagged before. Complaints disappear. People get intimidated. Maurice's eyes narrowed. Karen Blythe. Amina did not say her name, but she did not need to. Maurice exhaled. Doctor, why are you helping me? Amina's voice softened. My father had a heart attack. He's an immigrant. They treated him like he didn't understand anything. I watched him shrink in front of them. She looked Maurice in the eyes. I promised myself I wouldn't become that kind of doctor. Maurice nodded once. Thank you. Amina hesitated. If you push this, they'll come for you. They'll call you disruptive. They'll limit visitation. They might transfer her. Maurice's gaze hardened. Then I push smarter. Amina nodded. I can connect you with a social worker, someone who won't brush you off. Do it. Amina handed him a folded paper with a name. Trina Wallace. She's in the building until 6. Maurice looked at the time. He stood up, brushed off his trousers, and walked back inside like he belonged there. Danner immediately stepped in his path. You're not allowed back in. Maurice held up the paper. I'm here to speak to Trina Wallace. Danner frowned. Maurice kept his voice. .com. Are you going to block me from speaking to a social worker, too, in front of all these people? A few heads turned. Danner hesitated. Maurice saw it. The hesitation, he stepped around. Danner and walked in. Trina Wallace's office was small, warm, with a faded poster about patient rights on the wall. Was a black woman in her 50s, with locks pulled back neatly and eyes that looked tired of nonsense. Maurice explained everything. Trina listened without interrupting. When he finished, Trina leaned back. They marked her as self-pay and wrote, Patient refused charity. Maurice nodded. TRINA single quotes S, face tightened. That's not a mistake. That's strategy. Maurice swallowed. Trina tapped her desk. Listen to me, Mr. Caldwell. You're not the first. Maurice's hands balled into fists. Trina continued. They make it hard. They delay. They confuse. Then they send bills. When you panic, they offer payment plans with interest. Or they push you into debt settlement. It ruins your credit. Then you can't refinance. Can't move. Can't breathe. Maurice stared at her. A common struggle, dressed up in paperwork. Trina slid a form towards him. This is the official grievance form. We file it now, in writing, and we request her full records. Maurice nodded. TRINA. Lowered her voice. And I want you to know something else. Maurice leaned in. They have cameras everywhere, but footage has a way of disappearing. Maurice's eyes narrowed. So how do we get it? Trina stared at him for a long moment. Then she said quietly, sometimes people on the inside get tired. Maurice left her office with a grievance filed, a request for records, and a fire burning in his chest as he walked back through the corridor. Danner watched him. Maurice stopped in front of Danner.com. Do you have parents, Mr. Danner? Danner blinked. What? Maurice nodded towards the patients. One day it will be them in this chair, and someone will decide if they deserve care. Danner's jaw tightened. Maurice leaned closer. And on that day, you'll pray. You'll pray you don't meet a Karen Blythe. Maurice walked away that night. Renee arrived. She wore scrubs and her hospital ID from her job across town. She hugged Maurice tight. How's Mum? Maurice's voice cracked. They might have missed strokes. Renee's face went pale. What? Maurice told her what Amina said. Renee's jaw clenched. I'm going back there, right now. Maurice grabbed her hand. Not yet. Renee's eyes flashed. Dad, they're killing her with neglect. Maurice swallowed. I know. He looked at her, voice firm. But if you go in swinging, they'll shut you out. We need leverage. Renee wiped her eyes roughly. What do we do? Maurice opened his folder and pulled out the grievance copy. We build a case. Renee nodded. Then we do it the right way. Maurice looked at his daughter with pride and pain. He had tried to protect her from this world, but this world found them anyway. The next morning, Maurice and Renee walked into St. Halston together. Renee held her phone ready. Maurice carried the folder at the nurse's station. Karen spotted them, and her face tightened immediately. "Oh, you brought backup." Renee smiled without warmth. "I'm her daughter, and I'm recording." Karen's eyes widened. "You can't record in here." Renee's voice stayed calm. "In Maryland, I can record a conversation I'm part of with consent. So, if you don't consent, stop talking." Karen's lips pressed tight. Maurice stepped forward. "We need Gloria Caldwell's full medication list, imaging, and test results, and we need her insurance status corrected now." Karen's smile returned, but it was strained. "We're doing everything we can." Renee leaned in, slightly, double quotes, "No. You're doing what you can to make us go away," Karen snapped. "Security." Danner appeared again. He looked at Maurice. Then he looked at Renee's phone. His expression flickered. He had not expected witnesses with receipts. Maurice stared at Danner. "Are you going to drag me out again?" Danner's jaw worked. He looked away, and that's when twist number 3 happened. Not loud, not dramatic, just a small sentence that changed everything. Danner spoke quietly. "Mr. Caldwell, you drove the 19 line, right?" Maurice froze. He stared at Danner's face more carefully. The shape of the jaw, the eyes. Maurice blinked. "Your dad used to ride my bus." Danner swallowed. "He was sick. Kidney failure. You used to wait at the stop, so he wouldn't stand too long." Maurice's chest tightened. He remembered a thin man who always thanked him. Maurice's voice softened, despite himself. "Your father's name was Calvin." Danner nodded once, eyes shining with something like shame. Maurice held Danner's gaze. "You know what's happening here." Danner looked at Karen, then back at Maurice. His voice dropped. "Meet me by the loading bay in 10 minutes." Karen's head snapped up. "What?" Danner stepped forward quickly, loud again. "Sir, you need to leave." But his eyes told Maurice the truth. This was theater, a signal. Maurice nodded slowly. "All right." He turned and walked away, with Renee. "Heart pounding," Renee whispered. "Dad, what was that?" Maurice exhaled. That was somebody remembering what it feels like to be human. 10 minutes later, at the loading bay, cold wind whipping around dumpsters. Danner stood alone. He looked tense. He spoke fast. "I shouldn't do this." Maurice held his hands open. "Then, but look me in the eye, and tell me my wife deserves what they're doing." Danner's face tightened. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small USB drive. Eyes widened. Danner swallowed. "I pulled camera clips. The desk. The hallway. The moment Karen changed the file. The moment she wrote, 'Patient refused.'" Renee gasped. Danner held up a hand. "Don't tell anyone, it was me." Maurice took the drive carefully, like it was fragile. "Why are you helping us?" Danner's voice broke. "Because my dad died in a waiting room," they said. He was exaggerating. "He was in pain for 6 hours. 6. He shook his head, and I've been standing here telling people to calm down ever since. Like that's the problem." Renee's eyes filled with tears. Maurice nodded, swallowing hard. "Thank you." Danner stepped back. "They're going to retaliate. Karen has people." Maurice's voice was firm. "Let them." Danner turned and walked away quickly, shoulders tense, like he was running from his own conscience. Back in the car, Renee stared at the USB drive. "We can take this to the news." Maurice shook his head slowly. "Not yet." Renee frowned. "Why not?" "This is proof." Her voice lowered. "Because proof doesn't save your mother if they decide to punish her." Renee's face tightened. Maurice stared out the window at the hospital. "We need to get her scanned, treated safely." Renee swallowed. So what's the plan? Maurice exhaled. We go higher. That afternoon, Trina arranged a meeting with the hospital's compliance officer, a man in a glass office with a fake smile, Mr. Stevens. Compliance. He offered coffee like this was a business deal. Maurice declined. Renee sat beside him, phone face down but recording. Stevens smiled. I understand there's been some confusion. Maurice placed the grievance on the desk. This isn't confusion, it's falsification. Stevens' smile tightened. We take allegations seriously. Maurice nodded. Good, because we have evidence. Stevens' eyes flickered for the first time. Renee leaned forward. My mother's symptoms indicate possible vascular issues. The resident agrees. An MRI was denied. Stevens spread his hands. Medical decisions are made by physicians. Maurice's voice was calm. So, we request a second opinion, immediately. Stevens nodded slowly. We can arrange that. Maurice watched him carefully. Stevens continued. As for billing, I'm sure patient access followed procedure. Maurice leaned in. Then you won't mind us receiving a full audit trail of every edit on Gloria file. Stevens' throat bobbed. That may take time. Maurice smiled slightly. My wife doesn't have time. Stevens' smile vanished. He leaned back, eyes narrowing. Mr. Caldwell, with respect, your tone is becoming adversarial. Renee's jaw tightened. Maurice spoke softly. You're right, he paused. Because my wife is dying, and your talking like this is customer service. Stevens' face hardened. If you continue to make accusations, we may have to restrict access for patient safety. Renee snapped. Patient safety. You mean your safety. Stevens raised a hand. Miss, please. Maurice reached into his folder. He did not pull out the USB. Yet, he pulled out something else. An old photograph, faded. A bus. A younger Maurice in uniform. A group of hospital staff standing beside the bus, smiling. A charity event. Maurice slid it across the desk. Stevens glanced at it. Confused, Maurice said quietly. Do you know who that is? Stevens stared. Maurice pointed to a man in the photo, standing in a suit, hand on the bus door. Stevens' face went pale. That's Elijah Brooks. Maurice nodded. Your CEO. Twist number 4 began to rise, but not in the way Renee expected. Maurice continued calmly. I drove that event 20 years ago. Mr. Brooks shook my hand and thanked me for supporting the city. Stevens swallowed. Maurice leaned in. Get him. Stevens hesitated. Maurice's voice lowered now. Stevens stood, stiff, and left the office. Renee whispered, Dad, the CEO is going to fix this. Maurice looked at her, pain in his eyes. Maybe, he paused. Or maybe he's going to protect the building. Minutes later, Elijah Brooks walked in. Black man, late, expensive suit, controlled face. He looked at Maurice and Renee with a calm that felt practiced. Mr. Caldwell Maurice stood Mr. Brooks. Elijah glanced at the photo. I remember that day. Maurice nodded. My wife is upstairs, and your staff are falsifying her records. Elijah did not flinch. He looked at Renee, and you are. Renee's chin lifted. Her daughter, a nurse, and I know what stroke symptoms look like. Elijah sat down slowly. Tell me what you believe happened. Maurice spoke clearly. Measured insurance marked self-pay. Charity, refusal logged falsely. MRI denied. Security, intimidation. Elijah listened with a face that gave away nothing. When Maurice finished, Elijah exhaled. Mr. Caldwell, I'm sorry you feel disrespected. Maurice's eyes narrowed. Feel, not are, Elijah continued. This hospital is under enormous strain, staffing shortages, budget constraints. We do our best, Renee snapped. Your best is killing people. Elijah's eyes hardened slightly. Watch your words. Maurice held up a hand to stop Renee, then looked at Elijah. Double quotes, Sir, I didn't come here for sympathy. I came here for action. Elijah nodded slowly. I will investigate. Maurice shook his head. No, you will order the MRI today. Elijah's jaw tightened. That's a clinical decision. Maurice leaned forward. And if my wife has another stroke, because you didn't want to authorize a scan, it'll be a legal decision. Elijah's eyes flickered. Then he said something that cracked the room open. Mr. Caldwell, I'm going to be honest with you. Maurice waited. Elijah lowered his voice. St. Halston is owned by a parent corporation. I am the CEO here, but I do not control everything. Renee blinked. What does that mean? Elijah's face tightened with frustration. It means there are metrics, targets, optimization. Patient access is outsourced. Maurice stared at him. So Karen works for a contractor. Elijah nodded. And complaints go through the corporation. Morris' chest tightened. So, when we file grievances, they disappear. Elijah did not deny it. Renee whispered, so you can't fix it. Elijah looked at Renee. I can push, but if I push too hard, they replace me. Maurice felt anger and disappointment collide. A black man at the top, still trapped by the same machine. Elijah leaned forward. I can get your wife scanned. I can correct her billing. But if you go public, the corporation will retaliate. They will bury you in paperwork. They will delay her care. I'm telling you this to protect her. Maurice stared. This was not the hoodie owner fantasy. This was the reality. Even when someone looks like you, the system can still be designed to crush you. Maurice's hands trembled slightly. Renee's voice shook. So what do we do? Elijah's gaze softened for a moment. You decide what matters most. Justice or immediate care. Maurice closed his eyes. He thought of Gloria crying, "Don't go." He thought of the years they built together. He thought of all the times he told her, "I've got you." Maurice opened his eyes. Scan her, treat her, and correct the records. Elijah nodded. I will do that. Renee's eyes filled with tears. And Karen. Elijah's face hardened. I can remove her from this hospital. Maurice's voice was low. That's not enough. She'll do it somewhere else. Elijah hesitated. Maurice reached into his pocket and placed the USB drive on the desk. Elijah's eyes widened. Maurice said quietly, We have footage. Elijah stared at it. Renee whispered, Dad. Maurice looked at his daughter. I know. He turned back to Elijah. You said if we go public, they'll retaliate. But if we stay quiet, they keep doing it. Elijah swallowed. Maurice leaned in. So here's what we're going to do. Elijah listened. Maurice spoke slowly, firmly. You scan my wife today. You fix her billing today. You document it. Elijah nodded. And then Maurice continued. You send this footage to the state attorney general and the health department. Not as a scandal, but as a formal report. Elijah's eyes narrowed. That will start a war. Maurice nodded. Good. Elijah exhaled. You don't understand what they'll do. Maurice's voice rose slightly. I do understand. He paused. I've been black in America my whole life. The room went silent. Elijah stared at Maurice for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. I'll do it. The MRI happened that evening. The neurologist confirmed what Amina suspected. Small strokes, vascular issues, medication interactions making symptoms worse. There was treatment. There was hope. For the first time in months, Renee cried, not from fear, but from relief. Gloria stayed in the hospital 3 more nights. During those nights, Maurice did not leave her side. He sat by her bed, reading old church programs aloud. He played her favorite songs softly on his phone. He held her hand when she woke, confused. And for brief moments, Gloria came back. One night she blinked at him and whispered, You still here? Maurice smiled through tears. Always. Gloria's eyes softened. You were a good man. Maurice's throat tightened. So were you. Gloria squeezed his hand weakly. Then she fell asleep. A week later, the corporation retaliated. Not with police, not with shouting, with paperwork. Maurice received a letter claiming the MRI was out of network. Another letter claiming Gloria's supplement could not be verified. Another letter offering a discounted settlement if he paid within 7 days. It was absurd, and it was deliberate. Renee slammed the letters on the kitchen table. They're doing it anyway. Maurice stared at the paper, quiet. He felt the weight of his generation's struggle. You fight, you win a step. The system moves the goalposts. Renee paced. Dad, we need to go public. News stations, social media, everything. Maurice looked towards the living room. Gloria sat in a chair, staring at a blank television screen. She looked calmer now, but fragile, like a candle that could go out with one gust. Maurice lowered his voice. If we go public now, and they pull her coverage, what happens? Renee stopped pacing. She swallowed. They can't. Maurice stared at her. You're a nurse. You know they can. Renee's shoulders slumped. Maurice held the letters. He felt the rage in his bones. He also felt fear, not for himself. For Gloria. This is the part I want you to think about. If you've ever had to choose between fighting for justice and protecting someone you love, comment, I understand. Because some battles come with a price you cannot afford. Maurice called Elijah Brooks. Elijah answered, voice tense. They're pressing you. Maurice nodded. They're trying. Elijah exhaled. I sent the footage to the state. It's moving. Maurice's voice was tired. And in the meantime, Elijah hesitated. In the meantime, they'll try to crush you quietly. Maurice stared at Gloria. He whispered, then, I make a deal. Renee snapped, Dad, no. Maurice held up a hand. He spoke softly. I'm not giving up. I'm choosing timing. He looked at Renee. We keep Gloria safe. We let the investigation happen behind the scenes. And when she's stable enough, we speak. Renee's eyes filled. And what if she's never stable enough? Maurice's voice cracked. Then I speak for her. 2 months passed. Gloria improved slightly, then declined again. Not from strokes, from exhaustion, from everything her body had endured. One morning, Maurice woke to silence. Too quiet. He sat up fast. Gloria was lying in bed, eyes half open, breathing shallow. Maurice leaned close. Baby. Gloria's eyes moved to him slowly. She whispered, Busman. Maurice laughed through tears. That's me. Gloria's lips trembled. You took me home. Maurice's throat tightened. Always. Gloria's eyes drifted. Then she whispered, Don't let them. Her voice faded. Maurice leaned in, desperate. Don't let them what? Gloria's eyes fluttered. Ita Simi. And then Gloria's breathing slowed. Maurice held her hand. He felt the moment she left. Not dramatic, not loud, just a quiet absence. Like the room lost its warmth. Maurice bowed his head over her hand and sobbed silently, shoulders shaking. Renee arrived and screamed when she saw not a pretty scream, a deep one, a child's scream, the kind you never forget. Gloria's funeral was packed. Church members, old transit co-workers, neighbors. People came because Gloria had been a light, and because people knew Maurice, a man who never missed a shift, a man who always helped elders onto the bus, a man who never let a drunk teenager disrespect a grandmother. After the service, as the last hymn faded, Maurice stood at the pulpit. He looked out over the crowd. He held Gloria's photo, and he did something no one expected. He told the truth. He told them about St. Halston, about the falsified records, about Karen Blythe, about the intimidation, about the MRI they tried to deny, about the letters that came after. The church went silent, then angry. People murmured. Some shouted, That's right. Some cried. Renee stood beside him, shaking. Maurice's voice was steady. They tried to erase her. They tried to turn her into a bill. He lifted Gloria's photo. This woman was not a bill. He paused. And if you think they haven't done it to someone you love, you're wrong. After the funeral, a local journalist approached him. Then another. Then a community advocate. Then a lawyer. A month later, the state investigation went public. Not because Maurice sought revenge, because the evidence was too strong to hide. Patient access contractors flagged, multiple families interviewed. Audit trails exposed. The corporation paid fines. Karen Blythe disappeared into some other system, some other building. Elijah Brooks held a press conference. He looked tired, older. He spoke about reforms, about accountability. Maurice watched on television and felt no satisfaction, because Gloria was still gone. Justice does not resurrect the people you lose. A year later, Maurice sat on a bench near the old bus depot. He watched buses come and go, young drivers laughing, old folks waiting, Baltimore moving like it always did. Renee sat beside him. Her hair was pulled back. She looked older now, too. She held a folder. We got the final decision. Maurice looked at her. They cleared Mum's record. Coverage restored retroactively. The bills are void. Maurice nodded slowly. Renee swallowed, and there's a settlement. Maurice stared. How much? Renee hesitated. Not enough to change your life. Maurice let out a quiet laugh. Of course. Renee looked down. But it's enough to start something. Maurice blinked. Renee opened the folder and showed him a proposal. A small community patient advocacy clinic. Free help filing grievances. Insurance verification support. Stroke screening days. A hotline. Renee said softly. We can name it after Mom. Maurice's eyes filled with tears. Gloria Caldwell, Patient Dignity Center. He whispered it like a prayer. Renee nodded. We can do it. For people like her. Maurice stared at the buses rolling by. He felt the bittersweet ache of it all. He had fought, he had exposed them, he had pushed through, but the ending was not perfect. It was real. He would go home to a quiet house. He would reach for Gloria in the night and find empty space. He would carry that hole forever. But he would also build something that could not be erased. Maurice stood up slowly. Renee stood with him. Maurice looked at the depot, then up at the sky. He whispered, They didn't erase you, baby. He turned to Renee. Let's get to work. Closing beat. Some victories don't come with fireworks. They come with scars. They come with empty chairs at dinner. They come with grief you learn to carry. But if you keep pushing, you can still turn your pain into protection for someone else. If this story moved you, like and subscribe, and comment one word for Gloria. Dignity. Because that's what they tried to take. And that's what Maurice refused to surrender.